I thought the surprise was for me making the top 3% on the bar exam. Instead, it was my sister's engagement, paid for with my $35,000 trust fund. I smiled, excused myself, and started gathering evidence. I had just conquered one of the hardest exams in the country, a feat I thought would finally earn me my family's pride. What I got instead was a brutal, public slap in the face that screamed, "You mean nothing." I remember it vividly. That sweet, cloying scent of wisteria mixed with expensive perfume hitting me as I stepped out of my car. 3 grueling hours I'd driven from my tiny Chicago studio apartment all the way back to my family's perfect suburban home. 3 years, you guys. 1,095 days buried in casebooks, drowning in debt, surviving on nothing but ramen and black coffee. All for one goal: to pass the Illinois bar exam. And last Tuesday, the email dropped. "Congratulations, you have passed the bar." I was ecstatic. I immediately called my mom, and her voice, usually so clipped, was absolutely buzzing with excitement. "Wonderful, dear. You simply must come home Saturday night. We have a huge surprise for you," she chirped. So here I was. I walked through the back gate, wearing my absolute best interview suit, the one I'd saved for months to buy. I stepped onto the perfectly manicured lawn, and it was like walking into a movie scene. 50-plus guests were mingling, a live band was playing soft jazz, twinkling lights strung everywhere. And then I saw it. Stretched across the patio, a massive, cream-colored silk banner. "Congratulations on your engagement, Daisy and Liam." My stomach just dropped. It felt like I'd missed a step on a dark staircase, plummeting into nothingness. And there, right in the center of it all, was my sister Daisy. She's 27, gorgeous, just stunning in a champagne-colored dress, flashing a 3-carat diamond ring to an adoring crowd. And next to her, smiling but somehow reserved, was Liam Vance, her new fiancé. He came from actual wealth, the kind my mother had spent her entire life chasing. It hit me like a physical blow. A gut punch. I wasn't even a supporting character in this grand production. I was just the catering staff for a party I thought was for me. A numbing sensation spread from my chest, all the way to my fingertips. My smile froze, just a practiced mask I'd perfected over years of these family gatherings. Sweat pricked at my skin under my suit jacket. I'd worn this suit, thinking tonight was my moment of triumph, proof that my sacrifices meant something. Instead, I just felt like an absolute idiot, dressed up for someone else's show. Then, my mom, Aubrey, spotted me from across the lawn. She's 58, but thanks to religious skincare and selective memory, she always looks about 45. She didn't hug me. Instead, she grabbed my wrist, her fingernails digging slightly into my skin. "Oh, Selah, you made it. Good. Good. You look exhausted. All that studying, I suppose." Before I could even open my mouth, Daisy glided over, champagne flute in hand, her smile too wide. "Oh my God, Selah. Thanks for coming. I know you're busy with your little books, but this is so important to me." My throat tightened. "Mom?" I choked out. "You said this surprise was for me?" My mother let out a laugh that sounded like glass breaking. "Of course. The surprise is that your sister is marrying into a wonderful family." Then her voice dropped, just for me, a venomous whisper. "Now be a dear and go get more ice for the guests from the kitchen." Her words hit me like a physical slap. And suddenly, it all clicked. I remembered last Christmas. I hadn't come home because I was stuck in Chicago, studying for a mock bar exam. My mother had called, guilt-tripping me relentlessly. "Daisy cried because she missed you," she'd said. "Your father is so disappointed. You chose your books over your family." I finally understood. They weren't disappointed I was absent. They were disappointed I wasn't there to be Daisy's support, to make her look good, to fetch their ice. Tears welled up, blurring my vision. That pointless, manufactured guilt, combined with this brutal public humiliation, it almost broke me. I felt my shoulders curl inward, physically shrinking, just like I had my entire life, trying to fit into the tiny, suffocating space my family had carved out for me. But then, across the lawn, I saw him. Liam. He was watching me. And unlike everyone else, he wasn't smiling or chatting. He was just observing with careful attention, his brow slightly furrowed. Something shifted inside me. I swallowed my tears, straightened my spine. "No," I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. "I'm not getting the ice. I think I'll go say hello to the guests." My mother blinked, completely stunned. This wasn't the script she'd written for me. But I was already walking away, my heels sinking slightly into the manicured lawn as I headed toward the crowd. My hands were shaking, but I kept them at my sides, fingers spread wide. Something new was forming inside me then. Something hard. Something cold. Something incredibly clarifying. 3 years. 1,095 days. I did that alone. Without their help. Without their approval. I realized right then I didn't need to chase their validation anymore. Behind me, I heard my mother's performative laugh as she explained to nearby guests my elder daughter, always so independent. I didn't turn around. For the first time in 32 years, I wasn't playing my assigned role, and it felt like the first real thing I'd ever done at a family gathering in my entire life. The party hummed around me, a swarm of well-dressed locusts devouring canapés and champagne. I retreated to a quiet corner, near a garden trellis, my throat still burning from the tears I'd swallowed. 3 years of grinding academic effort, reduced to a mere footnote at my sister's engagement party. I pressed my back against the cool stucco wall, grateful for something solid to lean on. Voices drifted from the other side. My father's distinctive baritone cut through the ambient chatter. "Oh, Carter, your girls are so accomplished. I hear Selah just passed the bar." That was Richard Whitman, Dad's golf buddy and business associate for like 20 years. I held my breath, waiting. Waiting for my father's pride. For him to acknowledge his firstborn daughter, an attorney, top 3% in the state. His Selah. But then Dad chuckled. A weary, dismissive sound. "Oh, she just passed some test. But Daisy? She's my retirement plan. This wedding is going to solve all our financial problems." The words landed like a physical blow. Some test. 3 years of 18-hour study days, compressed into a casual, dismissive shrug. I gripped my champagne flute so tightly I was surprised it didn't shatter. The liquid trembled as I tried, desperately, to steady my hand. "Smart move with the Vance boy," Richard continued. "Old money. Very discreet about it, too. Liam's father sits on the board of 3 Fortune 500 companies," Dad replied, his voice practically purring. "This merger, marriage, is exactly what we need right now." My mind raced. Memories cascaded backward, rearranging themselves into a new, horrifying pattern. For 3 years, I'd paid for absolutely everything myself. Rent, food, books, bar prep courses. Meanwhile, whenever I'd asked about accessing my portion of grandmother's trust fund, $100,000 split evenly between Daisy and me, Mom always had the same answer: "Your sister has urgent needs right now. Just wait." I'd waited, and waited, and they'd borrowed my money, our money, to invest in Daisy's brand. The perfect clothes. The right connections. The calculated social media presence. All of it designed to catch a wealthy husband. I set down my glass and moved silently along the wall, needing to confirm what I already suspected. Near the rose garden, Aunt Clara stood with my mother, her usually calm face flushed with anger. "I can't believe you did this to her," Aunt Clara hissed, gesturing toward the house. My mother's back stiffened. "Be quiet, Clara. Selah needs to know her place. Today is about Daisy. This has to work. This is the whole family's chance." "Chance for what?" Clara's voice dropped lower, filled with fury. "To keep spending money you don't have? To keep draining the girls' trust fund? That's theft, Aubrey." My mother's smile remained fixed, her eyes scanning the crowd to make sure no one overheard. "It's an investment. Selah will thank us when this works out. The connections alone." Something shattered inside me. The hurt that had been festering since I arrived? It didn't vanish. No, it calcified. Into something harder, colder. My legal training kicked in, just like it did in court. Compartmentalizing emotions. Focusing on facts. Strategy. I wasn't sad anymore. I was done. Across the lawn, Liam stood alone at the makeshift bar, staring into his whiskey as if searching for an escape. Perfect. This was my opening. I straightened my jacket, took a deep breath, and crossed the grass with deliberate steps. Hi, Liam. I'm Selah, Daisy's sister. I extended my hand, professional and poised. Congratulations. You must really love her to overlook this family. His handshake was firm, his eyes sharply assessing me. He wasn't the pampered trust fund baby I'd expected. There was intelligence there. Caution. Overlook. Liam's brow furrowed. I offered him a professional smile, the kind I'd practiced for countless interviews. You know, we're a lot. Understanding flickered in his expression, followed by something else. Concern? Before he could respond, Aunt Clara appeared at my side, wrapping me in a tight hug that smelled like vanilla and sanity. I'm so proud of you, counselor, she whispered fiercely in my ear. Then, a makeshift podium appeared on the patio. A small platform with a microphone, hastily constructed for this impromptu celebration. My mom, Aubrey, straightened her pearls and tapped the microphone, the feedback making several guests wince. The band fell silent. Everyone. If I could have your attention, she announced, her voice honeyed with practiced charm. Carter and I are simply bursting with joy tonight. I stood at the periphery, watching her perform. She gestured to Daisy, who floated forward in her champagne dress, tugging a visibly reluctant Liam alongside her. Our beautiful daughter has secured a most promising future. Aubrey continued, her eyes sweeping the crowd for maximum effect. Daisy has always been our ray of sunshine. Even as a child, we knew she was destined for greatness. My dad joined them, champagne glass raised. To my little girl and her extraordinary taste, he toasted, laughter rippling through the audience, and to Liam Vance, welcome to the family. We couldn't have handpicked a better man ourselves. Not one word about me. Not a single acknowledgement of my accomplishment. 3 years of relentless academic effort, reduced to invisible background noise at my sister's engagement party. But something strange was happening inside me. The sharp, searing pain I expected to feel had transformed into something else entirely. My chest loosened. My breathing steadied. The shame and humiliation that had followed me through the gate, it had evaporated, replaced by a profound sense of relief. I no longer felt like I had anything to prove to these people. With steady hands, I reached into my suit pocket and pulled out my phone. I opened the voice recorder app and pressed the red button. Just in time. Daisy took the microphone, giggling. Oh my God, you guys are embarrassing me. She flashed her ring again, tilting it to catch the light. I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. This is literally the happiest day of my life. The speeches continued for another 20 minutes. Relatives, friends, business associates, all praising Daisy's beauty, her charm, and the magnificent match she'd made. I stood completely still, recording every single word, every laugh, every toast to her future. When the speeches finally concluded, guests dispersed to refresh their drinks. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and turned toward the bar, but my path was blocked. It was Daisy. Her perfect smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and the champagne in her hand definitely wasn't her first or third. There you are, she slurred, slightly swaying. Hiding in the shadows, as usual. Congratulations, Daisy, I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. She leaned in closer, her breath sweet with expensive alcohol and a cruel satisfaction. See, my nerdy sister? This is real success. She gestured to her face, then swept her hand down the length of her designer dress. Men don't marry degrees, they marry this. 3 years buried in books, and what do you have? A piece of paper and loans. I opened my mouth to respond, but then I noticed movement behind her. Liam. He was standing there, his expression hardening, his eyes narrowed to slits as he heard every single word. His face transformed to granite. Before I could speak, Aunt Clara appeared at my elbow, her hand closing firmly around my forearm. Don't, she murmured, barely audible. You're better than this. Daisy, still oblivious to Liam's presence, tossed her hair, waiting. She expected tears. A stammering defense. Instead, I looked her directly in the eye. "You're right, Daisy," I said, a strange, calm smile playing on my lips. "This is your success. Enjoy it." Her triumphant smile faltered at my utterly calm tone. She expected wounded pride, not this cryptic, almost serene response. By the time she finally turned to see what I was looking at, Liam had vanished into the crowd. I followed Aunt Clara away from the chaos, toward a stone bench tucked beneath the wisteria arbor. The purple blossoms hung in heavy clusters above our heads, their sweet fragrance filling the night air. "I'm proud of you, counselor," she said, squeezing my hand again. "For passing the bar, for standing your ground tonight." "Thanks for being here," I murmured, my voice still a little shaky. "Listen, Selah," she continued, her gaze soft but firm. "Your parents, they've always been like this. It's not about you. It never was." "I know that now," I told her. A relative called Aunt Clara's name from across the lawn. She sighed. "Will you be okay?" "Better than okay," I assured her, and I meant it. Alone beneath the wisteria, I watched the party continue without me. The lights, the laughter, the entire carefully orchestrated display of success. For years, I'd craved their approval, measuring my worth against their impossible standards. But in that moment, sitting there, something clicked into place. I realized I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to expose them or cause a scene. I just needed to win. I walked to my car and retrieved my laptop. Instead of going back to the party, I slipped through the side entrance into my father's study. The room smelled of leather and expensive cologne. I settled into his desk chair and powered up my laptop. My email loaded, and I clicked on a message I'd received 3 days ago from Kirkland and Ellis in Chicago. An interview request from one of the country's most prestigious law firms. I'd been too caught up in the family drama to even respond. "Ms. Monroe, we were impressed by your academic record and bar exam performance. We would like to schedule an interview at your earliest convenience." I typed a response, confirming my availability for Monday morning. Then I opened a new tab and started browsing apartments in Lincoln Park, Chicago's affluent North Side neighborhood. Places I could absolutely afford on a Kirkland and Ellis salary. A movement caught my eye. A stack of papers on the corner of my father's desk. Curious, I slid them closer. A bank statement sat on top, clearly detailing the trust fund my grandmother had established for Daisy and me. The account, which originally held $100,000, now showed a balance of just $65,000. Next to it, an invoice from Chanel. $8,000 for a handbag. The very same handbag Daisy was carrying tonight, telling anyone who would listen it was a little pre-engagement gift to myself. A cold, hard smile formed on my lips. I pulled out my phone and snapped photos of both documents. "Exhibit A," I whispered, sliding the papers back exactly where I found them. The music from the party filtered through the closed windows, but it sounded different now. Distant. Irrelevant. I had evidence. I had a plan. For the first time since arriving tonight, I felt completely in control. Truly in control. Monday morning arrived. I stared at my reflection in my laptop screen, adjusting the collar of my suit jacket. The same one I'd worn to that humiliating party. But this time, it felt like armor. The Zoom interview with Kirkland and Ellis loaded. 5 serious faces appeared, senior partners with decades of experience evaluating talent. I straightened my shoulders. "Ms. Monroe, your bar results are impressive. Top 3% in Illinois." I smiled, not the frozen mask from Saturday's party, but something genuine. "Thank you. I'm particularly proud of my performance in contract law." For 90 intense minutes, I fielded their questions, my answers precise as scalpel cuts. When they asked why I wanted to work at Kirkland specifically, I didn't mention my family or their cruel betrayal. I just said, "Because I believe in excellence, and your firm consistently demonstrates that value." Tuesday afternoon, the offer letter landed in my inbox. 6 figures. A $50,000 signing bonus. I read it 3 times, my hand pressed against my mouth, just to make sure. The number didn't change. My phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen, almost as if summoned by my success. I almost declined, but curiosity won. Sayla, we need to talk about Saturday. Her voice was cool, controlled, not the scolding I'd expected. What about it? I kept my own voice neutral, a skill I developed through countless mock trials. Liam has been asking questions about our family. About you, she paused, the silence perfectly calculated. Daisy says he's been distant. I said nothing, letting her fill the space. We're having a family dinner this Saturday. A healing dinner. Her voice softened into something honey-sweet and utterly, totally false. You have to be there. Liam needs to see we're a normal family. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost beautiful. I opened the offer letter again, looking at the numbers, at my future, my real future. This Saturday? Of course, Mother. I'll be there. After we hung up, I accepted the offer with 2 clicks. Start date, 2 weeks from today. I stood and walked to my tiny apartment window, looking out at the sprawling Chicago skyline. The realization settled like a heavy weight. My family only operated on crisis and appearances. They'd ignored me for 3 years, but now that I'd potentially destabilized Daisy's precious catch, I was suddenly essential. Fine. I'd give them both crisis and appearances. My phone rang again, almost immediately. It was Daisy this time. What did you say to Liam? Her voice cracked halfway through. I'd never heard her cry without an audience before. He keeps asking me about our family and money. You're trying to ruin this for me. I leaned against my kitchen counter, 27 years of being the dutiful older sister rising in my throat like bile. But I swallowed it down. I didn't say anything, Daisy, I said, my voice smooth, almost sweet. Maybe he's just smart. I hung up while she was still sputtering. The phone rang again, almost immediately. I ignored it. Then again and again. Instead, I called Aunt Clara. Sayla, I was just thinking about you. That party was a disaster, I finished for her. Listen, there's a healing family dinner this Saturday. Can you come? I need a witness. Aunt Clara didn't hesitate. Of course, what time? 6. And Clara? Thank you. For everything. Friday afternoon, I was reviewing my brand new employment contract when my phone lit up with my father's name. I almost let it go to voicemail, but then I changed my mind. Sayla. His voice wasn't angry. It was that soft, sad, disappointed tone. The one that used to send me scurrying, desperate to fix whatever I'd supposedly done wrong. You're breaking your mother's heart. I said nothing. You're tearing this family apart, he continued, each word precise, like he was delivering a prepared statement. Is that big career in Chicago not working out? Just come home. Apologize to your sister. My fingers tightened around the phone. Don't let your ambition make you forget who your family is. Ambition. As if passing the bar. As if surviving 3 years alone. As if that was just some selfish indulgence. I'll see you tomorrow, Dad, I said, and hung up. The gaslighting. It didn't hurt like it once would have. Instead, it hardened my resolve. Like steel in a flame. Saturday arrived, clear and cool. I dressed with meticulous care. Another suit, but not the interview one. This was charcoal gray, severe and clean-lined. I slid the bank statement into a thin manila folder, the one showing the $65,000 trust balance and that recent $8,000 transaction from Chanel. Then I added a copy of my Kirkland and Ellis offer letter. 3 pieces of evidence. Exhibit A, B, and C. I checked my appearance one last time before heading to my car for the 3-hour drive. My eyes were clear. Focused. I no longer looked exhausted. I looked like exactly what I was, an attorney preparing for court. The drive gave me time to think. 3 hours of watching the Chicago skyline fade into suburbs, then into countryside, and finally back into the manicured neighborhood where I'd grown up. 3 hours to rehearse what I'd say. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about truth. I arrived at the house exactly on time, the folder tucked under my arm. Aunt Clara's car was already in the driveway, parked behind Liam's sleek BMW. I took a deep breath, catching the familiar scent of wisteria again. The doorbell chimed as I pressed it. Footsteps, quick and light. Daisy opened the door, her smile professionally bright, but her eyes were wary. You came, she said, not quite a question. I said I would. I stepped past her into the foyer. Behind her, I could see the dining room table, set with the good china. My mother was arranging flowers with precise, agitated movements. My father was pouring wine. Aunt Clara and Liam sat with uncomfortable, forced smiles. This was a performance. Every bit as choreographed as that engagement party. But this time, I'd brought my own script. I walked toward the table, the folder tucked under my arm, a shield against whatever manipulation awaited. Everyone turned to look at me. "Selah," my mother said, her voice artificially bright, "a performance already. You're just in time." The dining room reeked of desperation. My mother's prized gardenia centerpiece, my father's too loud laughter, Daisy's careful avoidance of eye contact. Every single detail was designed to project normalcy. For 2 suffocating hours, we engaged in this farce. Aunt Clara observed with quiet dignity from the opposite end of the table. Liam sat beside Daisy, his posture stiff, his responses measured. Twice, I caught him studying me when he thought I wasn't looking. When dessert was finally finished, Mom gently set her fork down. It made a faint clink against her favorite gold-patterned china. She spoke, her voice soft but cold. "All right, Selah," she said, folding her hands on the table. "You owe your sister and Liam an apology for your childish behavior at the party." The table went silent. Daisy leaned forward, expectant, her lips curved in a premature victory smile. My father studied his empty wine glass. I said nothing. My mother's smile turned soft, venomous. "You should think carefully," she continued, her voice dripping with thinly veiled threats. "Liam's father is a senior partner at Sidley Austin. One phone call from him, and your little law career could be blacklisted in Chicago before it even starts." She straightened a knife beside her plate, a deliberate, menacing gesture. "Now, apologize." The threat hung in the air like smoke. I felt Aunt Clara shift in her chair, a ripple of unease, but my eyes never left my mother's face. For a moment, I saw her for who she truly was, not the socialite, not the matriarch, but a desperate woman grasping at anything to maintain her fragile control. I smiled. A cold, precise expression I'd practiced in countless courthouse bathroom mirrors. "A senior partner at Sidley Austin?" I said, my voice smooth. "That's impressive." I turned to Liam, whose eyes sharpened with interest. "Liam, do you know why I went to law school?" "Why?" he asked. "Because I believe in truth and evidence." I reached for my purse, hanging on the chair behind me. The leather folder felt substantial in my hands as I placed it on the table. "This family," I said, my voice clear and even, "is a fraudulent prospectus." My mother's face hardened. "What nonsense," she scoffed. I slid the bank statement onto the table. Trust fund balance, $65,000. And an $8,000 handbag. I looked directly at Daisy. "And that's just one purchase. Mom lied about the party." I continued, tapping each piece of paper. "Dad called Daisy his retirement plan. And Daisy, you've spent $35,000 from our trust fund." Daisy turned absolutely white. Her hand clutched Liam's arm, but his gaze was fixed on the papers. "How dare you?" Mother screamed, half rising from her chair. My father jumped. "Selah, you're taking things out of context." "No," I said, standing up slowly. "I don't just dare. I'm done." The room fell silent. Deafeningly silent. For 32 years, I'd been the quiet one, the reasonable one, the one who swallowed my rage just to keep the peace. But not tonight. For 3 years, I paid my own way. I lived in a studio apartment smaller than your closet, Mother. I ate ramen while Daisy bought Chanel. I worked while you all spent my inheritance. I turned to Liam. "You're a smart man. The decision is yours." From my folder, I extracted the offer letter from Kirkland and Ellis and placed it atop the bank statement. "By the way, Mom, no need to have Liam's father make that call. I don't think Sidley can blacklist Kirkland." My mother's mouth opened, then closed. For once, she had no script. "I came here to say 3 things," I continued, gathering my purse. 1, I want my $35,000 put back in that trust by next week. 2, I've accepted a new job. And 3, I smiled at my parents, a genuine, chilling smile, I'm moving next week. Don't call me unless it's about the reimbursement. Daisy finally found her voice, high and shrill. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me. No, Daisy, I replied, my voice calm steady. I'm just finally awake. I glanced at Aunt Clara, who sat perfectly still, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. She didn't need to speak. Her presence as a witness was more than enough. With calm precision, I pushed in my chair and walked toward the front door. Behind me, chaos erupted. Daisy's shrieks bounced off the chandelier. My mother's voice rose to a furious roar. But cutting through it all came another sound. Liam's voice. Cold and clear. Stop. Both of you. She's right. Show me the paper. I didn't look back. The night air hit my face as I stepped onto the porch and I breathed deeply. For what felt like the first time in years. My hands should have been shaking. My heart should have been racing. But I felt only a profound stillness. Inside my car, I placed both hands on the steering wheel. For a moment, I just sat in silence, expecting tears or regret or something, anything. But there was only certainty. I started the engine. The headlights cut through the darkness as I pulled away from the house where I was never quite enough. In the rearview mirror, the porch light grew smaller and smaller until it was just a pinpoint, then nothing at all. As I drove back toward Chicago, back toward my real life, I realized something truly profound. The validation I'd craved all these years wasn't something they could ever give me. It wasn't theirs to give. It was always mine to claim. 6 months later, the November sun glinted off Lake Michigan, casting golden ripples across the water. From my corner office on the 32nd floor of Kirkland and Ellis, Chicago unfolded beneath me like a promise kept. The woman staring back at me in the glass reflection of my office window? I barely recognized her. She was confident. Sharp. At peace. I was straightening a stack of depositions when a knock interrupted my thoughts. Hey, Selah, Marcus said, leaning against my doorframe, his tie loosened, a grin spreading across his face. A few of us are going out to celebrate winning our first big motion. The partners are paying. A party. For me. For us. For something I helped create. I'll grab my coat, I said, feeling a smile form, not the practiced mask I wore for years, but something genuine that reached my eyes. My phone buzzed as I slid my laptop into my bag. Mom flashed on the screen. The 5th call this week. I stared at it for a second, my thumb hovering over the glass. Then I hit decline and tucked the phone away. I didn't need their approval anymore. Later, walking home along Michigan Avenue, the wind carried the first hint of winter, but I barely noticed. A small gallery caught my eye, storefront windows filled with abstract paintings, splashes of color that reminded me of nothing and everything. Without even thinking, I stopped and went inside. Just browsing, I told the gallery owner, who nodded and kept her distance. I stood before a canvas of blues and yellows, thinking how I never would have entered a place like this before. No practical purpose. No one to impress. Just something that simply called to me. 10 minutes stretched into 30 as I moved from painting to painting, simply because I wanted to. That night in my condo, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop for a video call. Aunt Clara's face filled the screen, her silver-streaked hair loose around her shoulders. You look happy, she said. No preamble needed between us anymore. I sent you a plane ticket, I told her. Come visit over Thanksgiving, I have a guest room now. Aunt Clara's eyes crinkled. I'd love that. About time I saw this fancy new life of yours. The next morning, I was heading to a conference room when I noticed Eliza, our youngest intern, standing frozen before a stack of documents. Her hands trembled slightly, the exact same way mine used to when I felt overwhelmed and alone. I changed course and stopped beside her desk. You okay? This legal memo, she whispered. It's due by lunch, and I can't. Deep breaths, I said, smiling gently. I pulled up a chair and sat next to her. You've got this. Let's break it down. Slow as smooth. The relief in her eyes was painfully familiar. That evening, I stood on my balcony, overlooking the city I'd fought so hard to claim. The lights of Chicago stretched before me, a constellation of possibilities. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I called off the wedding. Thank you for showing me the truth. Congratulations, Counselor Monroe. Liam. I read the message twice, then deleted it. Whatever Liam did now was his choice, his journey, just as this was mine. I took a sip of water and leaned against the railing. The air smelled like lake water and possibility. 6 months ago, I was trapped in a tangled web of manipulation, convinced I needed something I never truly had. Now I stood in a home I chose, living a life I built, with a strength I realized I'd always possessed. I looked up at the glittering city lights and felt something rise within me. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Not even vindication. Just pure, unadulterated freedom. 2 years later, that freedom had a new, even more beautiful face. I was rocking my 1-year-old daughter, Aria, to sleep, the sweet scent of baby powder now replacing the stale smell of casebooks in my life. My husband, David, a kind, sharp-witted attorney I met sparring over a tricky motion, wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. My phone lit up on the nightstand. A text from a number I hadn't seen in years. Daisy. Hi, Selah. I know it's been a long time. Mom and Dad have told me they apologized. Aria's first birthday is next week. I'd really like to send her a gift, if that's okay. My breath hitched. David squeezed my shoulder. What is it? My sister, I whispered, showing him the text. After all this time, after the apologies I never thought I'd hear. I don't know. I don't know if I can. David was quiet for a moment, just watching Aria's tiny chest rise and fall. He kissed my temple. You don't have to do anything, he said softly. But if you want to, just remember what you told me you once told an intern. He smiled, his voice the same one he used to soothe our daughter. Break it down. Slow is smooth. Just. Slow and smooth. I leaned back against his chest, closing my eyes. He was right. It wasn't a performance anymore. It wasn't a war. It was just a new memo. And this time, I got to write it. I let out a breath I'd been holding for more than 2 years. I looked at David. Then down at Aria, her small hand curled around my finger. This was my family now. This was my truth. My old life, with its ghosts and its anger, couldn't touch this. But perhaps it no longer needed to be a war. Taking my phone, I typed out a reply, my fingers steady. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't an invitation. It was just a new file. Thank you, Daisy. That's very kind of you. Aria would like that. I pressed send. The first brick, placed slowly on a new foundation.